Welcome to Nest Egg Narratives, the podcast exploring the future of credit unions. We sit down with leaders shaping the industry to uncover what it takes to serve members in a changing world. I'm William Glass, CEO and co-founder of Ostrich, and your host for today's show. Welcome, Steve. Excited to chat. After hearing your approach to leading, especially a smaller credit union, at the Huntsville CEO panel in December, I think you've got a really interesting philosophy on leadership and how do you champion smaller credit unions in particular and help those communities that they're meant to serve. So I'm really excited to have you on, and I appreciate you being here.
No problem. I appreciate the opportunity. So
absolutely. So you've got a love for financial literacy. What really turned you on to personal finance and financial literacy in particular?
I can go way back. When I first graduated college, I graduated and got into a profession that doesn't start out very well, and that is within broadcasting. And I was a full graduate from a major university, working in TV and getting paid, $3.30 an hour. And trying to live on that, it's very hard. But the thing that came about following that as I worked my way into radio, which again, starting out is not a lucrative industry, but it's one that really satisfied me. But I was receiving, all of the and anyone that's been in a situation, or anyone that's graduated from college, or even anyone out there, they'll tell you all of a sudden they start receiving in the mail the envelopes, and the envelopes that say, "Hey, congratulations, you have been pre-approved for this great credit card." And coming out of college and living on ramen and eggs and things like that, this was great. And I dove right in head first. And within about a year, it was like, ooh, okay. It was very easy spending this money. Now you need to pay it back. And it got to the point to where what I did was I actually took my credit cards and I gave them to my sister, who was an accountant. And I said, "Here, you hang on to these. I need to get these in line. I need to get these taken care of. And when I do, we'll get back together and we'll decide if I can have them back." And, that was basically my first foray into, financial management, budgeting, and everything like that. And as I grew older, and I had a couple of children of my own, and I watched them as they were growing up. And, this was something that, we went over with them and so forth, but it was something that was lacking from schools. When I went to school way back in the olden days, financial education was something that was required. We took it as an eighth grader, and then we took it again for a semester as a sophomore. As my children got into high school, they didn't have this offering at all. And I can remember my son as a senior, his senior year, he also went to a local junior college full time, and he had to maintain a class with the high school to maintain that connection. And in doing so, he was torn between what he had to take. And one thing he says, "I hate math, Dad. I just hate it." And I asked myself, "Well, what's offered?" And he went through a couple different classes, and he said, and then finally the last class is dumb math. I said, "Dumb math? What's that?" He said, "It's where they teach you, budgeting and how to write a check and how to do these other things, to help yourself financially." And I said, "Well, that's the class you're going to take," because this was something that he needed to know. But it really brought to mind that this was something that these young folks were not being taught. They didn't have that opportunity. It wasn't in front of them. Even when I had it in front of me, I slipped until I caught myself. What's going to happen to them when they get up? They didn't even have any of a precursor to this. So I think that's where my interest and my tenacity towards making sure that financial education was something that was brought out and something that was actually taught and put out there in the community really came to life.
I love that. And the fact that you had a sister that was willing to hang on to your credit cards and not use them is a good sign to an accountant. That's helpful. Not everybody has family
Yeah,
members that can help on that front. And then seeing it come full circle, obviously, with your son, which saying, well, this is the dumb math, and it's probably the most useful math that he'll ever take, right?
that is definite. And myself going out and continuing these classes and teaching financial education, that example is one I bring up in every class. I say this is something that right now I'm going to talk to you about financial education. It might not be something that interests you right now and might be boring and might be anything else that comes to mind. But eventually what's going to happen is you're going to get into a situation and hopefully you'll look back and say, hey, I remember that. And I remember what he was talking about, what he was saying, and I can help them not suffer the same consequences or the same pitfalls that I went through.
I love that. And just for context, Steve, can you give a little background on the program that you're talking about of what you've created at WCU? Because it's not something that every credit union has, and especially smaller credit unions typically don't have these types of programs. So would you mind just giving a little context to the audience on what it is that you've created and how you've structured it?
What I did is working in banks prior to coming into the credit union. We always dealt with the Money Smart program, and I thought that was always great. But coming into the credit union world and looking around, there was really nothing that was there, and there really was nothing really at a smaller credit union level. A lot of times we look for things to get involved in community, and this is very important. It's very near and dear to me. And I went about and I put together a 8-week program for seniors in local high schools. And then I also put together a 12-week program for 8th graders in some of the local schools. I cover everything from the government's role, financial institutions, cards, credit cards, debit cards, so forth, budgeting, everything all the way up to the last class that I have with them is entitled The Real World. And I just sit down, pull up a chair, and we talk frankly about what the real world will bring. And I will go through some of the different things that I went through and some of the things that they need to look for and try to get them to be a little bit more involved. And by this time, it's the 8th week. They've gone through it and they're very into it. And you can get some frank conversations going back and forth. But it's really amazing, and to me, it really gets me when I can see it click. But this whole program, I went and took it week by week and tried to continue to build throughout until we could get to that last week. But just a lot of information that it's out there, and it's necessary for them to make sure as they go through, they're financially responsible for themselves, and that they don't have the issues. Are they going to have some issues? Yes, they will. And I talk about that, and I let them know, here are some of the issues that you may walk into. We talk about budgets. And one of the first things I tell them, I said, your first budget, and I want you to do a budget as soon as possible. But your first budget, more than likely, it's going to fail. And that's okay. It's absolutely okay, because the nice thing with the budget is the budget isn't working. You can go back in and change it. It's fluid. It's not set in stone. You set it to your lifestyle, or you move your lifestyle to meet your budget. And we talk about that, and we let them know that this may not work the first time, but with good financial planning, you don't stop. You continue to go and you grow from it. That's how you learn and move forward.
Absolutely. You mentioned that especially by that last class, the students are really bought in, they're leaning in. Do you have any stories, anything you've heard from students of what's been super impactful, or maybe things that surprised you?
There are a couple of things that really surprised me. I was talking with a class, and we were talking about budgeting, and we were talking about investments, and we talked about 401ks. And I talked to them, and the first thing I say, hey, how many of you work? and you'll have a couple of them raise their hands and everything and said, okay, this is what I want you to do. I want you to go to work today, and I want you to ask your boss, is there a 401k available? Okay, if they say yes, then you ask them, am I eligible? If they say yes, say, how much do you match? And then once they say that, say, sign me up. And their eyes kind of wide open. You say, because here's what's going to happen. Let's say that you make $200 this week, and they're matching so much, and it turns out that they'll match up to $50 a week. When your paycheck comes in, the first $50 before taxes is going to go into this 401k. Now, what your employer is going to do is they're going to match that with another $50. Now, instead of 50, you have 100. And then the next pay period is going to happen again. You put in 50, they put in 50. Now you got 200 in this. It's free money. Do not walk away from free money. I said, but you have to ask them. What's the worst thing they're going to say? The worst thing is no. And we go through this, and 2 weeks later, we're talking about IRAs and 401ks again. And I asked, I said, hey, I talked to you a couple of weeks ago about 401k. Did anyone go out and do that? And one of the young men raised his hand and said, yes, I did. And I said, and? Well, they said I was eligible, and I signed up. I said, you signed up for a 401k? He goes, yes. He says, I'm already getting money put into it. And that just, I mean, you talk about warming your heart and just being so proud of this young man. I mean, I was sky high at that point. So, I mean, that's where you can see some of the things you're talking about click in and actually be put forward.
What I really like about that, Steve, is that there was actually an action component, right? It wasn't just a, hey, this is what a 401k is. You actually challenged the students to go
Oh,
out
yeah.
and actually do it. And I think that to me is what is so important about financial literacy is what you're doing there. How do you tie it to the actual thing that somebody can do? So I love how you made that super contextual, and you can see the results. And even the kids that maybe aren't working or don't have that, they get to see their classmate who went and did it. And that's just as impactful to see that if you're not in a position to take advantage of it.
Well, and another example that, Will, is that I talk about credit, and we talk about how easy it is to destroy credit, but how hard it is to rebuild it. And that at that point, we say, hey, what do you think your credit score is? He goes, 0. I said, you're right. Unless you've been paying the utility bills and you've been doing different things like that, then you have loans and so forth. And after class, as I'm talking, a young man came up to me and he said, hey, I want to talk to you about credit. And we talked about loans. And then he said, would it be better for me? I'm looking at buying I think it was like a small like tractor or some four-wheel drive type of vehicle. He said, would it be better for me to go ahead and get a loan for this with my dad? I've already talked to my dad, and he's willing to go on the loan with me rather than just pay for it. He says, I have the money to do it, just pay for it outright. But I think I really want to build my credit, and I think that would be a way, because in 3 or 4 years, I want to buy a piece of land that I can eventually use to build a house on. And he said, would it be best to go ahead and get a loan with my dad and do this? And I'm like, definitely. Let's talk about credit. But here was someone that could see that he needed credit and he needed to build his credit. And this was an opportunity for him to do that, even at an age of 17, to have a loan with his dad, to go ahead and do that and start building that up for what he wanted to do in the future, one of his goals.
That's awesome. It's also a unique way to build credit, especially at that age, is here, they get this small vehicle loan. Yes, you can pay cash, but sometimes there's a benefit to borrowing if you do it in the right way. And as you kind of shown, here's the path to the thing that you want in a few years, but you don't just get credit overnight. That's an awesome story.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's impressive. I mean, there's a lot of things here you hear, oh, this younger generation, we're in trouble, and that. I can tell you, I've in talking with some of these youngsters, I mean, they really got it together, and some of them, they're thinking about this as they go forward, which is, it's really neat and encouraging to see.
I love that point. I'd love to dig in a little bit there, Steve, because I think that's something that you hear a lot. Oh, this younger generation, it's not not like we were when we were younger. And there's this comparison of maybe they're not that interested or they're not that financially savvy or they don't have that same whatever previous generations have. But it sounds like you're actually seeing the opposite.
Yes and no. I mean, there are still some that I'll be okay, but it's when you get to that last class, you start talking real world that you see the eyes open. And it's so nice to see some of these ones that they have so much already put together. In one of my classes, I talked to a young lady. We were talking about, does anyone pay bills? Does anyone do this? And she actually raised her hand. I said, so you're paying bills? She says, yes, I'm working right now to help my mom and dad, with the bills. She says, we have this, and my dad was out without work for a while, and my mom works part-time because of us kids. I also work, and I take care of the utilities for the family. And I mean, my eyes opened wide and was like, oh my gosh, I couldn't imagine that, being 17 or 18 and paying the utilities for the family. And yet this young lady was doing that. She saw the need for that. And you look at that and you go, this is something that you don't see. And this is where you really see the bright spots, the future coming. And it just really, like I said, it brightens your heart and just makes your eyes open wide.
Those stories are incredible when you see young people doing things like that. And I feel like there's probably examples in every credit union's membership field and communities where there are families that are in those situations. You see young people stepping up to help support their families.
I mean, it's something with our economy the way it is, and looking forward that I think it's going to become even more common. So, I mean, this is something. Is it something that I'd like to see? No, I'd rather have our economy hitting on all cylinders. But it's so nice to see that the families helping each other, and even those still in school, helping out with the family, helping make sure that the whole family is taken care of.
Absolutely. I'd love to use that as a segue to understand, Steve, what is different about leading a credit union, especially a smaller credit union? You've got previous experience, as you said, on the radio side, the broadcasting side, but also right in community banking, as well as having worked at one of the big banks. What's different about credit unions, and especially leading a smaller credit union that's clearly deeply involved in the community?
I've worked in the banking industry now for, I want to say 18 years. And my memories of a credit union go all the way back to when I was like 11 or 12, when my dad was working, and I got involved with his credit union where he worked. And I opened an account there and so forth. But I never thought about working at a credit union. I thought, they're small and everything else. And I worked for this bank. And I got the opportunity to come here. And I would tell you, I would never leave a credit union now. It is so different where banking is more of a business. Credit unions is more of a lifestyle. It's a community. You know people when they come in. They know you. It's more laid back. It's not hard sells where I'm trying to get you to purchase the credit card. I'm trying to get you to do all these different things. What I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to help you navigate this thing called life. And I'm trying to help you achieve what your financial goals are. And you see that, and you see everything that everybody within your building puts forth, but you also see the members give back. Last night we had our annual meeting. I was telling you about that earlier. And people come and they see you and they talk to you and they thank you for what you're doing, but you walk through what your accomplishments were for last year and what are you looking forward to this year. But it's also through the year. We have one of our members that comes in, and twice a year he brings a full lunch for us. I mean, around Christmas time, he brings in everything from ham to potatoes to the green beans to desserts. All this he does himself. And then
Wow.
he brings it in, and he does another time right around Easter, he'll do that. We have other members that will just come in and just stop off, and they'll bring a couple pies, or They'll just come in and say hi, and they'll drop off different things. And it's that type of community feel. And you really feel connected to their lives and to their goals. And that makes it even more important to you to make sure that, hey, I want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to make this as impactful and as meaningful to them. I mean, the credit union life is something that you have to experience. It's more personable. It's more customer centric, which is thrilling for someone that like myself that likes to be involved and likes to work with the public as much as I do. This is something that just is like, okay, this is a dream. I don't want it to end.
I love that. What do you do on that front? Not every credit union has members that will bring in entire Christmas dinners and and pies, and I'm sure there are some that do, but what is it that you think that culturally WCU does differently that creates that super strong member connection?
I think it's something that's happened even way before I was here, is that this credit union has connected with their members. They've connected with the community. And it's a family. When this gentleman comes in, every time he comes in, I will make sure I go out and I talk to him and I spend a little time with him. He stops in at every office and talks to the folks here. It doesn't hurt to have the longevity of employees. My senior vice president of lending, she's been here over 35 years. I've got other ones that have been here for 15 to 20 years. So you have that longevity, you have that connection. But it's just something where you become part of their lives. You know their kids, you know their grandkids, you know what they're going through. You know when they had their last loan. You know when this happened and so forth. You know when they retired. You know when they got married. It's a whole family thing, and that's what makes it so special and just something that you cherish as you work here.
Absolutely. Having that continuity, right? You don't have that at many other places, whether it's other financial institutions or just anywhere where you have folks that are there for 30 plus years and have that continuity, that relationship that continues to grow that you've got. So that's awesome that WCU has that for its members.
I agree. Wholeheartedly, I agree with that.
Things are changing rapidly. More technology. How do you think about the different changes that are happening, whether it's technological advances and that being a pressure from credit unions, but what are you seeing as some of the challenges that credit unions are having to deal with today?
This is something that's different with larger credit unions and smaller credit unions. Larger credit unions, you have the financial end to be able to go out and implement AI. You have the ability to go out and look at the newer things that will impact your members and allow them to do things a little bit simpler, do things easier, make it a little bit more seamless. As a smaller credit union, it's more like a pick and choose, because you have a limited amount of finances. You have a limited budget that you're working with. And there are things that you have to prioritize. Okay, what are we going to do? 3 years ago when I got here, the thing I noticed is that our website was ridiculously old. Our mobile device, our mobile banking was the same. And we took it upon ourselves my first year, and we redid both of those. And we made it crisp, we made it clean, we made it more informational. We put more things available on our mobile app, a lot more things for them to do. We introduced remote deposit. We implemented transfers, and we became an ACH originator. We did all these things with the mind of improving the experience that our members were going to have, to get them into the 21st century, where smaller credit unions have a difficulty doing that. I remember coming in, I came from a larger bank, and you walk in as a CEO and they go, well, we need to talk to HR, or talk to the IT department. We need to talk to someone about donations and things like that. And in a larger bank, well, we can call our headquarters and they'll take care of you. And in a smaller credit union, that's you. And now you're the one that's HR. You're the one that is going to make that decision. It's really neat. It's really an honor to be able to bring these unique technological things to folks and try and catch up with these other places that are a lot larger than us and have more means to do it. So it is a challenge for a smaller credit union. But as credit unions in whole, the biggest challenges that we face right now, yes, AI is there and technology in there, but a lot of it is how do we maintain our base membership? Membership is the key to a credit union. And one of the key things that has been happening is that credit unions as a whole have been losing membership holds for the past several years. This was something that we saw, and that's where we dove into the financial education, getting out in the community, getting to the younger generation, hyping up our mobile banking, because right now digital banking is huge, and that's where we're going to. People are doing more things on their phones than going to the branch. It was amazing. I sat in one of my financial literacy classes just this past week, and the topic for that week was digital banking. And I asked the class, I said, okay, how many of you have accounts? And nearly everyone raises their hand. I said, okay, how many of you went physically to your bank within the last 2 weeks? And there were like maybe one or two people that raised their hands. Okay, how many have been there in the last month? And there's maybe like 3 or 4 total. You go, that's where digital banking has played a huge role. I said, when I grew up, we didn't have the digital banking or the websites. When you wanted to go to the bank, you had to go in person. And the thing is that if you worked, the only time to go was on Saturdays. And then they were only open until noon or 1 o'clock. So it was crowded, you had to wait, and it took all this valuable time. And this is what digital banking has cured. You can do your banking at any time, any moment, 24/7, whatever day you want to do it on, and you can take care of it. The biggest obstacles that credit unions are facing right now is that how do you take this technology and work it into increasing your membership? On a smaller scale where we're at, we utilize our digital and our website to bring in more, but also to go out into the community and work with these high school seniors that are graduating and they will soon want other accounts of their own. And that's what we're fighting for right now. But I think those are the biggest challenges that credit unions are facing right now.
Base membership is key, right? As you said, a lot of credit unions are seeing a decline in membership. So even serving and better serving those members, which it sounds like is what you did when you first came in WCU, is let's take a look at what are some of the ways we can better serve our existing members by improving the web experience and the mobile app and offering some of these kind of key services. I want to dive into that, but before quickly, you mentioned as you made that decision, it was about prioritization and priorities, especially as a small credit union with limited resources where you're not going to be able to do, 80 things. You might be able to do 1, maybe 2 things that are really important. Do you have a framework for prioritizing?
When I started here, the first thing is you have to take a look at what is going to affect the most membership in the most positive way. What is going to give the most positive impact? And that's just a matter of, okay, here's what we have. And you have to take stock and you have to be brutally honest with yourself and take a look and say, okay, where are we at with this? Where are we at with this? Where are we at with this? But also it's something is you take a look at some of your larger competitors. I took a look at the larger credit unions in the area. And I pulled up their websites and looked at their mobile apps. I went in there and I took a look at some of the things that they did. It's like, okay, how can we attack these? We can't do it all at once, but what are the different things that we would like to do to bring us into the same talk with them and into the same space with them? And then it's okay, what is going to be the cost? What is going to be the impact? What is going to be, the overall completion of this? How long will it take? And those are things you take into mind, and then you just start going. I mean, you bullet point things down, and it's just like someone gives you a big list. Okay, let's start at A, and let's take care of A. Now let's take a look at B, and then all of a sudden you're going to get done with A, and you go, well, hey, wait a minute, we need to reprioritize here because something else has come up. And now you take a look at it again. It's almost like a budget. You have a budget for what you're doing for your credit union. And with the budget, you revisit it as many times as necessary to make sure that that budget is solid. And that's what we did with our priorities. I took a look at what was going to be the most impactful. The most impactful at the time was the website and the mobile app. And those were two things that we went right after. And then it was, okay, now that we got the mobile app up, we need to add some different other features to it. So we looked at even upgrading the mobile app. And then we looked at, okay, what other things we need to do. We had an audit with our NCUA auditors or examiners, and they gave us some ideas on things that we needed to do. They said, hey, you need to have an IT firm. Like, ooh, that costs money. And it's like, I really didn't have that budgeted. Okay, we need to take a look at that. So that moved to the head of the prioritize, and that was the next project that we took on. So it's just a matter of taking a look at what the impact is going to be on your members, what's the impact going to be on the credit union, and then what the cost is and how can you work that within your budget. And that's what we did then, and that's what we continue to do now.
Makes a lot of sense. And like you said, always reprioritizing too when new information comes up, right? You get the audit and it's like, hey, you need this. So you have to make sure that you're in compliance. And if that's what the auditors say, right? That's important.
And well, the thing is if an NCUA examiner tells you that this is something you should have that.
Right. So that's one that bumps things to the top of a priority list quickly.
It does. Yes. Yes, indeed.
Going back to the impact of those upgrades, but also the biggest challenge around making sure that you maintain that membership base. What's the impact of whether it's the upgrade initiatives, the programs where you're physically getting into these high schools and middle schools and working directly with students? How are you seeing your membership base served as well as grow?
It gives us a little bit more diversity as far as what we're offering. I mean, by offering financial education, going out into the schools, I don't know any other, credit unions or banks that are doing that right now currently. Yes, they do offer programs. They have programs that they do, but actually going out there physically and doing that, I haven't seen that. I take a look at what do we need to do to grow members? What are some different ways we can do it? We can reach younger members. We can make it more appealing to them, and that's through the digital. Our older members, we look at loans and things like that. And one thing that we decided this last year, between the last couple of years, the Federal Reserve has changed the interest rate. I believe it was 13 times. And we went through and we took a look at our loan rates and we said, okay, we want to stay competitive. We don't want to pass these on to our members, because we want to make sure that we're being fiscally responsible to them. And whereas others then started raising the rates, we kept ours to where they were at. And this brought us new loan opportunities. With new loan opportunities, you have to be a member to get a loan. So we were able to take this venture and move it into increasing our memberships. And then it was talking to our current members. Okay, hey, what about your grandson? What about your friends and so forth? Do you have anyone that you would recommend? And we took a look at all different avenues for what we can do to increase our membership. But it's also not just getting new people, but maintaining the ones you have. Because you can add 12, but if you lose 15, that's not taking you in the right direction.
Right, exactly.
So we really had to take a look at both sides of that aspect.
I love that. It sounds like you've got a different membership sets too, right? When you think about your older members and what their needs are versus the younger members that you're hoping to bring in through these financial literacy and bringing them in through that lens, and what are their needs, their different stages of their lives, and how as WCU do you cater to all of those needs? That's more than just those two audiences. There's even more diversity within that. But how do you serve folks at different stages of their lives.
And that's a fine line to walk, and that's one that we take those steps every single day.
Steve, you mentioned the rates and everything and making that decision as rates were going up. I was actually looking at your website, and it's easy to compare the mortgage rates because those are the ones that are safe, and recently just bought a house. So I was looking, I was like, man, if only I was in the counties where WCU serves, because those are not the interest rates that I saw,
No.
unfortunately. So you are doing that, and it's very competitive and compelling in terms of an offering, especially on something
Well,
like a mortgage.
I think the thing to keep in mind is that, working in a bank and working in a credit union, that the bank is for profit. Their goal is to drive everything down to the bottom line. Credit union is not for profit. It's member driven. What we bring in, yes, it's nice to bring some things down, but it's nice to make sure it's back into the membership. It's back in the membership in a good loan rate. It's back in the membership in dividends. It's back in the membership in new things that we can offer. I'm more concerned about what we can do to impact our members than what we bring down. Are we still bringing money down? Yes, we are, and that will help with future plans whenever those come up. But we need to think about today also, and the idea is not, hey, we're going to get rich. It's we need to make sure our members are taken care of, and we're doing everything we can to do that.
Taking care of members and doing it in a way that's sustainable, you can reach more and more as time goes on, and put everyone in a great position. So I love that. Steve, what's some of the best leadership advice you've received?
I think the biggest thing is when I first started out, and I've been in management for over, Lord, I want to say almost 40 years now. One of the first things one of my first managers told me, he said, adapt your style consistently, and take a look at the leaders that you work with. Every leader you ever work with, they're going to have things that you like and things that you don't like. Adopt the things that you like, and the things that you don't like, do it in a manner that you like it. When you get to a new leader, again, take a look. What do you like? What do you not like? And adapt that to yourself. But the other thing is you have to make yourself available. If you are not available for your members, if you're not available for your employees, you're not in the right position. Your goal is to make it easier for them and to do everything you can to make their jobs a little bit easier, but also with your members or your customers to make their life a little bit better and a little bit easier. And I think that's the key is as a leader, you're the one that people look at. You're the one that they expect that decision. And you really have to take that forward. You have to make sure that you understand all the sides to what's going on, and make sure that decision or what you do is in the best interest of the company, the employees, the customers, the members, all the way from top down.
I love that. It reminds me of that servant leadership mindset, right? Of like, well, how do I make everyone's job easier, members experience life better? How do I serve versus,
Well,
dictate?
in the end of the day, what I look at is if I was able to impact one person, if I was able to help someone, an employee, help them succeed, help them move forward, I've done my job. I've had plenty of people that say, hey, I'm going to leave, I'm going to take this job, it's a better position, and I'll ask them about it. And if I agree with them, I say, hey, congratulations, yes, that's a great move. I support you. If there's anything I can do to help you, let me know. If it's something that maybe I think it's not the right move for them, I'll tell them, hey, I'll be honest, I don't think that's the right move, but I will support your decision, and I'll be there if you need help. I'll be there if you have questions or you need something, you just need someone to talk to. But the idea is that we're here to help people, and we're here to help them succeed, not just us. We succeed if others do. And that's really how to look at it.
It's a great mindset to have. We succeed if others do.
Thank you.
If someone that is currently working at a credit union and maybe they've got some leadership experience, but ultimately one day they'd like to eventually run a credit union or continue to move up the leadership ladder. What do you think are some things that folks should do to build the necessary skills in order to be effective when they do get into that position or put themselves in the best position to ultimately be a great leader?
The one thing I tell my seniors when I go in, show up and show out. What I mean is you have to be there. You have to be present. You have to be there on time. You have to make sure that you're in the right attitude when you walk in. You have to be willing to ask questions. You've got to be willing to do a little bit extra. Ask questions, but listen to the answers. So nothing is worse than you asking the same question 3 or 4 times. That just tells the person that maybe you're not listening. But ask the question, listen. If you don't know, ask them to help you and show you how to do it. Because sometimes people learn more by being shown. But it's just making yourself available, soaking things in, taking on whatever extras out there, offering to assist in different programs. Don't shy away from hard projects. Those type of things, it helps you get noticed, but it also helps you build up the necessary experience and knowledge that you'll need later on. But you also get the ability to work with a lot of different people. And you'll get to see a lot of different personalities and a lot of different situations. And those help mold you into the leader that you're going to become.
I love that, especially the don't shy away from hard things. It's like in sports, if you've got the toughest wide receiver, I guess I would do a football analogy, right? Toughest wide receiver, who do you want on them? You want your best DB on them, right? You're not going to put your weakest link there. So tackling tough problems, right? How do you make sure that you learn? And yeah, you might get beat. You might you might make mistakes. That's part of it. Being put on a tough assignment or taking up a tough assignment is actually a sign of strength. It's not necessarily about the outcome so much as what you learn.
And the thing is we actually learn when we lose. And that's the thing to keep in mind. And that's like when I tell them with their budget, your first budget more than likely will fail, but that's not bad because you're going to learn. You're going to learn why it did. In that first project, it may not be the results you wanted, but you're going to learn, okay, what did we do? You have to go back and take a look. What did we do? How did we get to where we're at? And why did we not get to the goal that we had thought we were going to get at? What did we miss? And those are things that also help mold you, is that it's not going to be all victories. Because what happens to the person that has victories every single time is you don't know how they're going to react when they do have that first loss. Because
Right.
it's how you act and react to that loss that really molds you and shows what type of leader you are.
Great advice, Steve. Great advice. What's a book, podcast, resource, something you recommend to other credit union leaders?
Oh, I really don't have any. I delve into sports. I did a podcast for 5 years with another gentleman I knew. We did a sports podcast, and it helped me with communications, but it helped me rewind and release from work a little bit. Because the one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to sit there and continue to take work home, because then you're going to affect your work-life balance, and you're going to affect your home life, and that eventually then will affect your work life. And it's something where, what would I recommend? Find something that's going to stimulate you, find something that will intrigue you, will interest you, and find something that will take you away from the everyday, allow you to regenerate, to reset, and be able to go in with a fresh look the next day. Nothing's worse than sitting there on the same problem and going with it for 24 hours straight and continuing that on a day-by-day passage. All that does is it hinders you. It puts the blinders up where you don't see what's going on around you, because you're so caught up in this one issue that other things happen, while you're doing that. So my advice is just take the time to get away, take the time to regenerate, take the time to take a look at with fresh eyes.
Love that. Radio broadcaster, sports podcast. I mean, Steve, I think I should hand this over to you to run this at this point.
I sat there and said, one of these days I should write a book. But I've had a very blessed life that I've been allowed to do a lot of the things that I've done and live in as many places as I've lived and do that. And I look at it and I said, I started out as a small town boy in a town of 1,500. And if anyone had told me then what I've done now, I would have told them they're absolutely joking. But it's been truly blessed, and it's something that I would never change.
I mean, humble beginnings and all the things that you've done, and you can look back and be proud of over the course of your life. That's the goal, right? Being proud
It is.
and content. Well, Steve, anything else you want to leave the audience? I know we've covered a lot of different things. I've loved the budget analogies, and you mentioned earlier from the failures. I kept coming back to the budget analogy, but it's like when you mess up in one area, if I keep overspending on eating out, then I'm fine on clothes. That's not my issue. It's the one thing I keep messing up on. So I love that you brought that all the way throughout, even with the leadership and how to prioritize from a credit union. So I definitely see that. But is there any advice or other words of wisdom that you want to make sure that you leave the audience with, or stories, anecdotes, anything?
It was like with the budget. We talked about that, and it's your first one is probably going to fail, and that's okay, because that's where you're going to learn. And I said, when the thing with the budget, and the one thing that I really liked that we talked about with the class is that when the budget doesn't work, then we can adjust the budget to meet our lifestyle. But then there's also the other thing. Sometimes we need to make our lifestyle meet our budget. When we talk about you can't live a $100,000 lifestyle on a $25,000 salary. So there's always the other side. But it's taking a look back and using your losses or your failures to redefine who you are, but also to figure out, how do I avoid that same mistake? How do I learn from this, and how do I move forward? The goal is always to move forward. You never want to stay still. You never want to go backwards. You want to move forward in some aspect. Even if it's the tiniest step, it's forward. And that's where you need to go.
Love it. Move forward. Whatever that small step is.
Always.
Well, Steve, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate the time. If anybody wants to connect with you, LinkedIn, what's the best way to reach out if there's any credit union leaders that want to chat?
Well, they can reach out on LinkedIn. I'm on there, Steve Determan, or they can just contact the credit union itself, WCU Credit Union. My email, that's fine, steve@wcucu.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Steve. Really appreciate it.
No problem. I appreciate the time and the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thanks for tuning in to Nest Egg Narratives, powered by Ostrich, the platform helping credit unions grow membership and drive financial wellness. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to follow and share with a fellow credit union leader.